For years, Ellen DeGeneres built one of the most powerful personal brands in Hollywood. She wasn't just another talk show host, she was the celebrity who ended every episode with the same simple message: be kind to one another. Millions believed it. Her audience adored her. A-list celebrities lined up to appear on her couch, and her daytime empire generated hundreds of millions of dollars. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. What started as a single awkward interview exploded into one of the biggest celebrity controversies of the decade. Former employees began sharing stories that painted a completely different picture behind the cameras. Viral clips resurfaced. Headlines piled up. An internal investigation followed. Before long, the woman once known as television's nicest star was facing accusations that threatened to destroy the very image she'd spent decades creating. Most people assumed that would be the end of Ellen's Hollywood story, but after stepping away from the spotlight, she's back with a Netflix special that doesn't just joke about the controversy, but suggests she was pushed out of the industry. Supporters call it a well-earned second chance. Critics say it's another attempt to rewrite history without taking real responsibility. So what actually happened behind the scenes? How did America's Be Kind icon become one of the entertainment industry's most polarizing figures? And can someone rebuild a reputation once the public stops believing the image they've carefully created? Because the deeper you dig into Ellen's rise, her downfall, and her latest comeback, the more complicated the story becomes. Long before the controversy, Ellen DeGeneres had one of the most remarkable comeback stories in Hollywood. She began as a stand-up comedian known for her clean observational humor, a style that made audiences laugh without relying on shock value. By the 1990s, she'd landed her own sitcom, and it seemed like her career was only heading in one direction, straight to the top, but then came a moment that changed everything. In 1997, Ellen publicly came out as gay, both in real life and through her sitcom. At the time, it was one of the boldest moves any television star had ever made. While many praised her honesty, the backlash was immediate. Ratings dropped, advertisers grew nervous, and before long, her sitcom was canceled. For a while, Hollywood seemed unsure whether there was still a place for her. Instead of disappearing, Ellen slowly rebuilt her career from the ground up. She returned to stand-up, hosted award shows, and gradually won audiences back with the same approachable humor that had made her famous in the first place. Then, in 2003, everything changed again with the launch of The Ellen DeGeneres Show. The daytime talk show wasn't just another celebrity interview program, it became a cultural phenomenon. Ellen danced her way onto the stage every afternoon, surprised ordinary people with life-changing gifts, played hilarious games with celebrities, and ended every episode with the now iconic phrase, "Be kind to one another." That message became more than a sign-off. It became the foundation of her entire public identity. Viewers didn't just see Ellen as a comedian anymore. They saw her as one of the nicest people in entertainment. Hollywood's biggest stars eagerly appeared on her couch, politicians visited the show, and countless viral moments spread across social media. The program won dozens of Emmy Awards, attracted millions of viewers every week, and turned Ellen into one of television's highest-paid personalities. Reports estimated her fortune had climbed into the hundreds of millions, making her one of the most successful entertainers of her generation. For nearly 2 decades, the formula seemed untouchable. The smiling host, who encouraged kindness, had become one of the most trusted faces on television. To the public, Ellen represented positivity, generosity, and authenticity, a carefully built reputation that appeared almost impossible to shake. But behind the applause and the daytime smiles, whispers about what it was really like to work on the show had quietly circulated for years. Most people ignored them until one unexpected moment made everyone start paying attention. And once those stories reached the public, the image Ellen had spent decades creating began to unravel faster than anyone could have imagined. For years, Ellen's public image seemed almost untouchable. On camera, she laughed with guests, surprised deserving families with generous gifts, and reminded millions to be kind. But behind the scenes, a very different narrative was quietly taking shape, one that most viewers never heard about. Long before the controversy exploded into headlines, There were occasional stories from former employees and people connected to the production describing the workplace as far less cheerful than what audiences saw on television. Some claimed the atmosphere was tense. Others described a culture where employees felt pressure to avoid mistakes because they feared the consequences. At the time, these accounts rarely gained much attention. They were usually dismissed as isolated complaints from disgruntled former staff. One rumor, in particular, refused to disappear. For years, entertainment circles circulated claims that employees were discouraged from approaching Ellen unless absolutely necessary. Some even alleged there were unwritten rules about interacting with the host backstage. These stories were impossible for the public to verify, and because they mostly came from anonymous sources or industry gossip, they remained exactly that, rumors. Meanwhile, the show's success continued to overshadow any criticism. Ratings were strong, celebrities kept lining up for interviews, and Ellen's reputation as one of the friendliest personalities on television seemed stronger than ever. If a few negative stories surfaced online, they were quickly drowned out by the show's popularity, but everything changed as social media became more powerful. Unlike years earlier, former employees suddenly had platforms where their experiences could spread to millions of people almost overnight. Individual accounts that once might have gone unnoticed began finding massive audiences. As more voices joined the conversation, people started asking whether these stories were connected or whether they were witnessing a pattern that had been overlooked for years. Then came 2020. Multiple former employees publicly described what they believed was a toxic workplace culture, raising concerns about issues ranging from management practices to the overall environment behind the scenes. The allegations prompted the show's parent company to launch an internal investigation. Several senior producers eventually departed the program, and Ellen herself addressed the controversy in a message to staff, acknowledging that changes were needed and taking responsibility as the face of the show. For many viewers, it was the first time the gap between Ellen's on-screen image and the stories from behind the curtain became impossible to ignore. The woman whose brand was built around kindness was suddenly being judged by whether that message extended beyond the cameras. But even with those allegations making headlines, there was one viral moment that permanently shifted public opinion, and it involved a guest who calmly challenged Ellen on her own stage. Every major celebrity controversy seems to have one defining moment, the clip that changes everything. For Ellen DeGeneres, many people point to an interview with actress Dakota Johnson that suddenly made millions of viewers question the image they had accepted for years. The interview itself looked harmless at first. Dakota had appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show to promote a new film, and the conversation quickly turned to her recent birthday. Ellen jokingly asked why she hadn't been invited to the party, adding that she hadn't received an invitation. Normally, it would have been another playful exchange between host and guest, but Dakota didn't laugh it off. Instead, she calmly replied, "Actually, no. That's not the truth, Ellen. You were invited." For a brief moment, the atmosphere completely changed. Ellen appeared caught off guard as Dakota explained that an invitation had been sent and that Ellen simply hadn't attended. The audience laughed awkwardly, but online, viewers noticed something else. Many felt it was one of the rare occasions where a guest had confidently challenged Ellen on her own show. The clip quickly spread across YouTube, X, TikTok, and countless reaction channels. Within days, millions had watched the exchange, with many interpreting Ellen's reaction as unusually defensive. Whether the moment was simply an awkward misunderstanding or something more, it became a symbol of a much larger conversation. Then the internet did what it often does best. It started digging. Older interviews featuring Ellen were revisited with fresh eyes. Fans and critics alike analyzed her interactions with celebrities, searching for moments they had previously overlooked. Some clips showed guests appearing uncomfortable during jokes or pranks, while others sparked debates about whether Ellen's interviewing style had crossed the line from playful to overly confrontational. Not everyone agreed with those interpretations, but the public's perception had clearly begun to shift. Timing made the situation even more significant. The Dakota Johnson interview had originally aired before the workplace allegations became front page news. Once those allegations surfaced, the clip took on an entirely new meaning for many viewers. People began connecting unrelated events into a broader narrative, arguing that the interview hinted at personality traits they believed were now being confirmed by former employees' accounts. Others cautioned against reading too much into a single television moment, pointing out that short viral clips rarely capture the full context. Regardless of where people stood, one thing was undeniable. The interview became one of the most replayed moments in Ellen's career. It transformed from a brief late-night talking point into a lasting piece of internet history, regularly cited whenever discussions about her public image resurfaced. Suddenly, Ellen was no longer being judged solely by years of success or the kindness she promoted on television. She was being measured against a growing collection of viral moments, workplace allegations, and public criticism that seemed to reinforce one another in the minds of many viewers. And as those questions continued to grow louder, the pressure surrounding the Ellen DeGeneres show reached a level that even one of television's biggest stars could no longer ignore. By the summer of 2020, what had started as online criticism had evolved into something far more serious. The conversation was no longer centered on viral clips or celebrity interviews. Instead, attention shifted to what current and former employees were saying about life behind the scenes of one of television's biggest daytime shows. Multiple former staff members came forward with allegations describing what they believed was an unhealthy workplace culture. Some said they experienced intimidation, favoritism, or poor treatment from members of the production team. Others claimed they felt uncomfortable raising concerns because they feared professional consequences. While many of these accounts focused on senior producers rather than Ellen herself, the stories collectively raised questions about the environment surrounding the show. The allegations quickly made national headlines. As public pressure intensified, Warner Media, the company behind the program, launched an internal investigation into the workplace. Employees were interviewed, concerns were documented, and the entertainment industry watched closely to see what the findings would reveal. For a show whose entire identity revolved around kindness and positivity, the investigation alone was a stunning development. Then Ellen broke her silence. In a message sent to staff, she acknowledged that as the face of the show, responsibility ultimately rested with her. She expressed disappointment that employees had reported negative experiences and promised that changes would be made moving forward. Later, when the show returned for a new season, she addressed viewers directly, saying she had learned that things happened at her workplace that should never have happened and that steps were being taken to improve the culture. But for many critics, those statements arrived too late. Some viewers appreciated that Ellen publicly accepted responsibility and committed to change. Others questioned how such issues could have existed for years without the host being aware of them. Supporters argued that managing a large television production meant she couldn't personally oversee every interaction. Critics responded that leadership also means accountability, regardless of who was directly responsible. The fallout didn't stop with public statements. Several senior producers departed the show following the investigation, signaling that significant changes were taking place behind the scenes. Even so, the controversy continued to overshadow the program. Ratings began to decline, media coverage remained relentless, and nearly every new episode was viewed through the lens of the scandal rather than the entertainment it was meant to provide. Perhaps the biggest loss wasn't measured in ratings. It was trust. For nearly 2 decades, audiences had associated Ellen with generosity, humor, and compassion. Now, that carefully built reputation faced constant scrutiny. Every public appearance, every interview, and every statement was analyzed for signs of sincerity or defensiveness. The brand that had taken years to establish was unraveling in a matter of months. And although the show would continue for a while longer, many people had already begun asking the same question. Was this the beginning of the end for one of television's most successful daytime empires? Few celebrities have experienced a rise and a fall, quite like Ellen DeGeneres. For nearly 20 years, she wasn't just a successful television host, she was a cultural icon whose entire public identity revolved around one simple idea: kindness. That message inspired millions, helped launch countless careers, and made the Ellen DeGeneres Show one of the most influential programs in daytime television. But reputations are built over years and can change in a matter of weeks. The workplace controversy, the internal investigation, and the wave of public criticism permanently altered how many people viewed Ellen. Whether every criticism was fair or not, the controversy became inseparable from her legacy. Instead of being remembered only for groundbreaking achievements and unforgettable television moments, her name is now often mentioned alongside debates about workplace culture, accountability, and whether public personas always reflect reality behind the scenes. Now, with her Netflix special and occasional public appearances, Ellen appears determined to tell her side of the story. Some viewers believe she deserves the opportunity to move forward, arguing that people can learn from mistakes and rebuild trust over time. Others feel that genuine redemption requires more than jokes or explanations. It requires convincing the public that meaningful change has taken place. That's what makes Ellen's story so fascinating. It's no longer just about one celebrity or one talk show. It's about how quickly public opinion can shift, how social media can reshape a legacy, and how difficult it is for anyone, no matter how famous, to regain trust once it's been lost. In today's world, audiences aren't just watching what happens on camera. They're paying just as much attention to what happens when the cameras stop rolling. Whether Ellen successfully rewrites her legacy remains an open question. History will likely remember both sides of her career: the comedian who broke barriers, entertained millions, and built an entertainment empire, and the television host whose carefully crafted image faced intense scrutiny when allegations about her workplace emerged. One thing, however, is undeniable. Ellen DeGeneres' story has become one of Hollywood's most talked about cautionary tales, proving that fame can elevate someone to extraordinary heights, but maintaining the public's trust is often the hardest part of all. And now the question passes to you: was Ellen treated unfairly by the court of public opinion? Or did the controversy simply reveal a side of her that audiences had never seen before? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more Hollywood documentaries, and we'll see you in the next one.